Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into something I think many of us know well, indecision.
Right, that feeling of being stuck.
Exactly. And specifically, it's kind of surprising links to our really early childhood experiences.
Mhm.
We're drawing on the work of psychotherapist Juha Klaavu today. He's written some fascinating stuff on procrastination and indecision.
Yeah, Klaavu's perspective is really insightful. He suggests that those very early years and how we learn to navigate them, well, they can set up these deep patterns,
Patterns that affect how we make choices later on.
especially the big personal ones, yeah. It's about tracing back why we feel so paralyzed sometimes.
And for you listening, we know you want to get straight to the useful insights without wading through theory. So that's what this deep dive aims to do.
Get to the core ideas.
Exactly. We want to unpack Clavu's thinking in a way that hopefully gives some real clarity on why we get stuck and maybe, just maybe, what might help. So our big question today is really, how can understanding where indecision comes from actually empower you, to make choices that feel more, well, more you?
That sounds like a great goal. Where do we start?
Okay, let's dive in. Klavu kicks off with this really foundational link, doesn't he, between childhood and being indecisive as adults.
He absolutely does. His core point is that indecision, especially in those really personal life areas, often stems from a childhood need, a need to adapt.
Adapt to parents.
Yes, adapt to parents. And he often highlights the mother relationship as particularly central in shaping this.
So if you really had to adapt strongly as a kid, that sort of sticks. It creates a tighter grip on your decision-making later.
That's the idea. It forms a kind of unconscious template.
But it's not like these people can't decide anything, right? That seems too broad.
No, not at all. That's a key distinction Klagu makes. People can be very decisive, at work or maybe with hobbies, because those areas often have external structures, clearer rules maybe. The old childhood adaptations don't get triggered in the same way.
Ah, okay. So the structure helps bypass that old pattern.
It seems so. It's when things are more open-ended, more personal. That's when the indecision tends to creep in.
Right. So where does he say it shows up most? Where are the real sticking points?
Klavu points mainly to personal relationships and those big life crossroads moments.
Like what?
Things like which career path to take or where you should live, who to partner with. The choices where the right answer isn't obvious.
That's where the internal compass, the one set in childhood, starts kind of spinning.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. It's trying to navigate using old maps, perhaps.
Okay, so if this need to adapt is the root, how does that actually look when we're facing a decision? What's the mechanism?
Well, that brings us to the next really interesting idea. This search for the right decision.
Ah, yes. The feeling that there is one single right answer you just have to find.
Exactly. Klavu argues that when we're paralyzed, we're often unconsciously searching for what our internalized parent, the mother or father figure inside us would want.
Like we're still trying to please them, even if they're not there, or even if we consciously disagree with them now.
Precisely.
Yep.
And the problem is when we can't find that right answer internally because it's based on their presumed needs, not our own authentic self,
We just freeze.
we get stuck.
Yeah.
And Klavu stresses this isn't usually some logical, rational process of weighing pros and cons.
It's deeper, more automatic.
Much deeper. It's that unconscious adaptation running the show, not a conscious thought like, what would mom prefer?
It's more visceral than that.
Definitely. It's a powerful, ingrained drive. And the really difficult part is that this drive can actually stop us making choices that are genuinely good for us.
Because we're prioritizing that old adaptation, that imagined approval over our actual well-being.
That's the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. We might sacrifice our own fulfillment to satisfy this ghost, essentially.
And this isn't just something we grow out of, it carries on.
Oh, Klavu suggests it often continues and can sometimes even get stronger, more complex in our adult relationships.
Wow. Okay. To make this feel really concrete, Klava uses case studies, right? There's one about an artist that really illustrates this.
Yes, the aspiring artist. It's a very telling example. This was a client, very successful in business, actually.
Okay.
But deep down, since he was a kid, he'd always dreamed of being a fine artist, a painter.
But his background wasn't supportive of that.
Not really. He grew up in an environment where that wasn't seen as a viable or perhaps respectable path, but he kept painting secretly.
Oh.
And people noticed his talent. Others actually encouraged him, saying, you should apply to art university.
So he got some external validation for it.
He did. And that nudge was important. He did apply.
But didn't he keep it quiet at first, especially from his wife?
That's right. He didn't tell anyone, particularly his then wife, until the entrance exams were literally happening.
And her reaction.
According to Klaavu, it was quite negative. She was worried. Worried about money, stability.
The practical stuff.
Yes, but also about their lifestyle, her own aspirations. The respected neighborhood, the holiday cottage, that sort of image. Her vision really clashed with his dream.
Okay, so a direct conflict.
A major one. And the client, well, he felt this profound sense, almost like a lack of permission, to follow his own path.
He internalized her worries.
He seemed to. It was as if he felt his job was to fulfill her needs, her vision for their life, which, Klaavu suggests, might have been echoing needs she had internalized from her own upbringing.
Ah, so it connects to how we choose partners, too, repeating patterns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Klaavu points out that this client might have unconsciously chosen a partner who mirrored or reinforced those early dynamics where his own needs weren't central.
So he gets into the art school admissions process.
Made it to the second stage, actually. He was clearly talented, but then something changed.
He pulled back. Self-sabotage.
That's Klaavu's interpretation, yes. The client unconsciously torpedoed his own chances.
But why, if he wanted it so badly?
Because deep down, Klaavu suggests he felt he wasn't entitled to it, to study what he loved.
Wow.
And the prospect of actually succeeding and then having to make a conscious choice, his art versus his wife's expectations, that created an unbearable internal conflict.
So facing that choice head-on was too much.
Apparently so. And how did he resolve it?
How?
Unconsciously.
Oh.
By essentially failing the interview part of the process.
So the decision felt like it was made for him. By circumstance.
Exactly. He avoided the conscious, painful choice. It's a really stark example of those old adaptations just taking over, even against our conscious will.
That's quite something.
Yeah.
So how did this person eventually break free? What was the path forward?
Well, therapy was key, as it often is in these situations.
Makes sense.
Through that process, he started to actually see these unconscious forces that were running his life, leading to this kind of self-defeat.
He gained awareness.
Yes, awareness of the dynamics, processing that earlier relational stuff, the trauma, really, and starting to uncover what Klaavu calls the true self.
The self that isn't just about adapting.
Exactly, the authentic self, separate from the need to please or fit into those old molds. And finding that gave him the courage, eventually, to pursue his own way.
In art and in life.
Both, yes. Yeah. It took time, but he started making choices aligned with that true self.
And the outcome for him. Did things change?
Dramatically, yes. The epilogue is pretty positive. He did go back, earned his Master of Fine Arts degree.
Fantastic.
And significantly, he ended up divorcing his first wife.
Right.
He's now in a new relationship, one described as being built on mutual support, on authenticity.
A relationship between two true selves, maybe?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Contrasting sharply with the previous one, which Klaavu might frame as being based on chaotic pairs of inauthentic self-states, basically those old dysfunctional adaptive patterns interacting.
So pulling this all together then, what's the main takeaway for you listening from Klaavu's work here?
I think the fundamental point is that when we feel stuck, especially in our personal lives and our relationships, that indecision very often has roots, deep roots.
Back in those childhood adaptations.
Yes. Specifically, that often unconscious drive to meet the perceived expectations of those key figures from our past, like the internalized mother or father.
And that drive can be so powerful, it just overshadows what we actually want or need ourselves.
It really can. It becomes the default program, almost.
But the hopeful part is that just understanding this, just seeing the pattern, that can be the start of changing it.
Absolutely. Bringing these unconscious dynamics into the light, into
Yeah.
conscious awareness, that's the crucial first step. It gives you back some agency.
Agency to choose differently.
Exactly. It lets you start to untangle what you genuinely want from those old internalized shoulds and expectations that might not fit anymore, or maybe never really did.
Okay. So here's a final thought to leave you with, something to maybe mull over. Think about the parts of your own life where you feel the most indecisive, where you really get bogged down.
Sticky spots.
Yeah. Could there be echoes of those early adaptations that need to fit in or seek approval, influencing your choices there? Are you perhaps unconsciously tuning into those old voices instead of listening for your own true self?
It's a powerful question to ask.
It really is. And the encouraging idea here is that with awareness, you can start to shift towards decisions that feel more authentic, more aligned with who you truly are now.